Hi there, and welcome to our Everything You Need to Know for an aluminum porch screen project with existing roof and floor. As you can see in this picture, the only installed screens are the screen on the screen door itself and the panel above the screen door. I'm awaiting the clips for installing the rest of the screen. This video is divided into 5 parts. These 5 parts will take you through all the steps required to have a successful screen room build. My build went very poorly due to bad planning. Here you can see my first drawing of the build. Then we have my modified drawing while I'm building it. And now I've shown you the final as-built drawing, which should have been the first drawing and would have saved a lot of problems. The first major problem with my original drawing was that I didn't consider that concrete floors have a slope. My slope is 2 inches and 6 feet. So 2 inches and 6 feet is significant when you're trying to build tube structures. And I completely overlooked that fact. The other significant error in my drawings was the fact I didn't consider not to have tube ends exposed. The tube ends should always be covered by another tube, the floor, or the ceiling so that you don't see them when you approach the structure. This is the drawing I should have been using, and it demonstrates what your drawing should consider. Down here at the bottom left-hand corner, we have a top view of the screen porch structure. And it's 13 feet long, and 75 inches deep. And then the rest of this drawing shows the different pieces that make up that structure. Notice how the top stick and the bottom stick lie in between the 2 end sticks. This way there's no holes showing on the outside of the structure. The holes are at the roof and the floor. Everything else is inside the tubing array. Therefore, all holes are covered. Also notice that 2 inches were added to the vertical sticks to make up for the slope of the concrete. 2 inches were also added to each of the end walls. And notice that the part E right here by the screen door in parentheses. Each piece has a letter. This letter E is actually the E shown up on the outer wall. These following listed items complete the layout and planning consideration. I just want to focus attention on a couple of them. You can read all of them yourself. Extruded tube clips aluminum is much harder because stainless steel screws don't like going into a hard metal. And they bind up and they cause all these problems described here in this paragraph. So I recommend you don't do that. The other thing is I prefer 2 number 10 screws over 4 number 8 screws when mounting the extruded clips because this makes everything easier and it's quicker and it's just as strong. And last but not least, you have to decide what type of kick plate material you're going to use. I recommend using soffit panels, which are plastic, vertical grained, and it seems to work quite well. Here we have a list of tools that are required, and you can read the list yourself. We also included special drill bits that are needed. Tube assembly will be the next 4 topics that we talk about. So what is an extruded tube clip and how is it used? So this is what a tube clip looks like. It has 4 pre-punched holes. They're 3/16 inch in diameter each. And you notice one tab is narrow and the other tab is wide. And we'll discuss that in a second. So these are all pre-punched at the factory. You buy them, and I bought 50 of them. And the problem is you can't really use these 4 holes because how do you line a smaller hole in the center between those 4 holes for the screw shank? Here you can see that the 4 holes will be definitely off center of the tube you're trying to screw it to, because there's no accounting for the tube that slips over this tube clip. Therefore, we made this adapter, which is shown on the left side of this picture, simply a section of the tubing which had 2 bolts put in it so we can pull it off of the tube clip when we're finished screwing the tube clip to the adjacent piece. Here you can see the tube clip jig, which aligns the tube clip properly when you're trying to screw it into the adjacent tube. That's on the top right corner of this picture. On the top left is a factory tube clip, and at the bottom is a tube clip that's been used twice. Each time I used it, I drilled 2 new holes in the tube clip so I could get perfect alignment when the screws are tightened down. Here is a workbench I use for assembling the tube clips onto the tubes. Notice there's a roller here on the left side of the picture. That roller is the same height as the cutoff saw, so I can put my long 13-foot tubes on there and fine-tune the length, cut them exactly to 13 feet. Here is a short video clip showing how the tube clips are installed and the screw holes are screwed into the adjacent tube. These clamps hold it in place while you screw the screws in, and behind this assembly is the backing plates, this wood right here, that keeps the extended piece from moving while you drill into the tube clip jig. And this combination worked quite well. During the assembly of the tube walls, we ran into a problem. A lot of the tubes wouldn't slide that last eighth of an inch to close the gap at the T. And what happened was that some of these tube clips are defective. Look at this one right here on the left side. You can see that that corner piece of the tubing crashes into the curved part of the tube clip. Same way on the right side. The left side is worse than the right side. So we finally discovered this after a while, and we started filing off those corners on the tube itself. We could have filed a slot in the tube clip, but we chose to round off the edge of the corner on the tube. That made the tube slip right up tightly against the T connection. Because of the tubing T's, the assembly has to be in a certain sequence. You have to do all the inside T's before you do the outside T's. For example, in this picture up here in the center, these T's have to be installed before you can install these end caps here and here, which have to be installed before you can install the top and bottom caps. So it's definitely a sequence. You have to follow that sequence. Once you're finished and screwed everything together, then you just stand the wall up and put it in position. Put it in place, I should say. This is an update to a video I created about 2 days ago. And in the previous video, over here on the right-hand side, you see this double 1/8-inch spline that's connected together in the slot. On the left side of this picture, you will find flat spline installed, which looks totally different, and it actually works much better. In this picture, the flat spline versus the twin round spline looks quite similar, but in real life, there's a tremendous difference in holding power. In this picture, you can see on the left-hand side is the flat spline. Once snapped into place, it's hard to get out. The twin round spline, once it's pushed in place, comes out real easy. So the flat spline is the way to go. In this picture, it's easy to see that the flat spline has a nice even pulling on the screen, whereas the twin round spline pulls unevenly on the screen. Therefore, the little squares get out of control here with the twin round spline. This drawing is what you see when you look closely at the end of the flat spline with an eye loop. You notice these ribs here at each side. Those ribs are what makes it lock in place and grip the screen and hold the screen in place on the aluminum. Here you can see the flat spline that I ordered off Amazon. It seems to work quite well. So I'm going to use this flat spline. I'm going to make a video installing screen with this flat spline so that you can see any pitfalls that I run into, but I don't expect to have any problems with it. In closing, I must say screen clips are absolutely necessary to do a professional job. You can use other methods to hold the screen, but the screen clips are fully adjustable, and they're easy to remove, and they just make the job so much easier. So I highly recommend that you pre-hang your screen with screen clips before you start putting in your spline material. Once the screen is in place, I start at the top and go from the center to both ends with the spline. Then do one side from the center to both ends of that side. And then I prefer to do the bottom, which is usually longer, from the center to both sides. And I do the last side, center to both sides last. This keeps everything tight because this will be the shortest side to reduce the chance of a pucker. And last but not least, always do a small and inconspicuous screen panel first. You'll probably make mistakes and you probably won't like the results and you end up ripping it out. So practice in a place that's not so observable by everybody, like above the screen door here. And get it right. You've got to do it 2 or 3 times to get it right, because then you have the practice to do the rest of them and they'll all look professional from that point on. So this concludes this video. I hope it was helpful to you.